are today at Astley Green Pit. So welcome to Roy's Rambles, and we're going to go in and we're going to take a look around. Now, one or two of you have asked about my watch, of all things. It is a vintage watch, 1970s Slazenger chronograph. For those people who are interested in vintage watches, twin coil. I service it myself. It's accurate to within plus or minus 0 seconds a day. Slazenger don't make watches. It's actually a Swiss movement inside, in the same way that this is a Slazenger jacket. Slazenger don't actually make jackets, but they're a brand. Okay, so I hope that answers that question. Let's take a look inside. Now, when we were doing the piece the other day, we came up and we were at the railway crossing, and where the train went past, which is a few miles from here. And we finished that particular video by saying we were coming here to the Lancashire Coal Mining Museum. We've come in now and we've come to the back of the museum, and we found a really, really interesting piece of history right here in front of us. Now, if you look down, you'll be able to see these stone blocks with these railway line clamps on them, and they're called sleeper blocks. Now, in the early days of rail, the very, very first railways, they didn't actually lie the rails on sleepers. They laid them on these stone blocks, and these stone blocks are from the original piece of track that the actual rocket ran along on the Manchester to Liverpool railway, which was the first railway in the world. Even the railway museum over in York hasn't got anything like this. So this is a real piece of history, and if you go along the actual line, you'll see the actual bogies that were running on the original track, which are here on the left. In a bit of a sorry state at the moment, but once they've been shot blasted and painted, I'm sure they'll look fine. Behind me is the biggest surviving steam engine in the world. This is the steam engine that drives the pithead, that drives the pulleys that lower and raise the cage in the pit, and it is the only and largest surviving steam pithead engine in the world. Now we're going to speak to one of the staff here who knows all about this engine, and he really is the expert. Behind us is this amazing engine. It's a colossal thing.
Yeah.
Is there anything? I mean, I've already said about being the only one surviving engine in the world.
It's now the biggest remaining mine winding engine in the world.
Oh, right.
3,300 cc.
Yeah.
Our mine shaft is half a mile deep, and this would bring 10 tons of coal up that half mile mine shaft in less than 2 minutes.
Well,
and
that's
it would do
ongoing.
that for 16 hours a day.
Okay.
So this controlled the production of the whole mine.
Yeah, it's. I noticed that it seems to have a couple of cylinders. Is one a low pressure cylinder and the other a high pressure cylinder?
If you want it's a 4-cylinder reciprocating engine.
Yeah.
The two small cylinders at the front here are high pressure cylinders. So the steam came in from the boilers under pressure into the high pressure cylinders, take the first push off the steam there. Then underneath the floor here is what's called a reheating tank, and then fed the same steam into the rear cylinders, the big cylinders, which are low pressure cylinders.
Right.
Took a second push off the same steam.
Yep.
And then it went back to the condensers for going back through the system again.
Right.
Again.
But for people who don't quite get that, basically the steam comes under high pressure and some of the work's taken out of it. Then the stream is passed to a second, much larger piston and cylinder, and even more work is taken out of it. And it's a common configuration on steam engines, on Victorian boats and other Victorian machinery. It was still the current technology when this particular steam engine or winding engine was built. How long ago was that?
1908.
Basically, at the turn of the century. Yeah. After that, of course, electric winding gear came into being, and where it was possible to use electric motors, that became the industrial standard. However, for such a deep pit and for such an economical machine, steam engines not particularly economical. But if you're running them on coal and you own a coal mine, then they are fairly economical. Looked at that way.
Yeah.
Am I right?
You're absolutely right, yeah. It ran on 16 of what are called Lancashire boilers. There's an example of Lancashire boiler.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you about that Lancashire boiler. Everybody's watched Fred Dibner, and he's always going on about Lancashire boilers, and they're immediately recognisable whenever you see them. I've actually been to this pit once before it was a museum, and there used to be a line of I don't know how many, a dozen or so, maybe more.
16. It
was 16. Lancashire boilers. I think it was between these two buildings, if I'm not.
You're absolutely right. There was a second engine house for the second shaft with a much smaller engine in it. 16 Lancashire boilers. 10 of them ran on coal, because you're quite right, they had a ready supply of coal.
Correct.
6 of them ran on the gases they extracted from the mine. It's a small gasometer, and fed it into the 6 Lancashire boilers.
Right. So was there quite a lot of methane gas then?
Yes, it's a very wet pit, and apparently the damper the atmosphere, the more methane it creates.
Well, that makes perfect sense as well, because you also remove quite a lot of the danger aspects.
What was destructive down there was constructive on the surface.
That's right. Again, it costs nothing. And in fact,
they can teach us a number of things about recycling. We think we're clever on recycling today. They didn't waste anything at all.
Well, no, because they were all about making money.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when it comes to making money, people get quite inventive, don't they?
True.
That and war, I think.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
So, is there anything specifically interesting or fascinating about this particular winding engine, apart from the size of it? I mean, it's colossal, isn't it?
The whole engine is fascinating to me. I never tire of this engine.
Well, not only to you. I mean,
I'm sure.
I mean, I'm an engineer by trade, so I'm fascinated by any engineering. I'm certainly fascinated by our heritage and our industrial heritage with regards to the engineering side of it. And I'm sure that lots and lots of people are the same. People watching this and seeing the size of this particular engine will be fascinated by it.
And it still runs today, but it runs on compressed air today.
Yeah.
So it's the greenest steam engine you ever did come across as well.
As just stated, this particular engine is now running on compressed air, and it's interesting. Compressed air in its own right, running things on compressed air. Again, another Victorian concept, but it's no different, apart from the fact that it's not hot particularly. It's very green, and it's the steam engine doesn't know it's not steam. The steam engine is just the same
It does
as steam.
actually. It does. This one does.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, no.
This
Please.
was built by a company called Yates and Tom in Blackburn.
Yeah.
And they built it allowing for the fact that the heat off the steam expands the engine. Now, because we run it on compressed air,
No expansion.
it doesn't expand. So we have two problems with this. One is that our piston rings are tighter than they would normally be.
If they were
so
heated up.
although it doesn't growl as an engine, it
No.
does clank a little bit more than it should do.
Yeah.
And secondly, the steam used to have what was called steam oil in it. So as it went through the system, it lubricated the system.
That's right. This is the emulsified oil that it turns white. It turns white when you can't do it. No.
So we have to inject oil into the cylinders, which is a less efficient way of lubricating the inside of the engine.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It works, but it's not perfect.
We are actually inside the winding room or the winding house, and it's absolutely amazing. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a super engine. Yeah.
It's such a big building as well, and these engines are so, they're so impressive.
Yeah, it's a massive winding engine. You can see one of the outlets up there. There's a second window behind the drum there that you can't see. So the cord, which went up to the top of the pit head, two cords, as it rotated, it drew cord in at one end, unwound it off at the other end.
Right.
So in the shaft, you had two cages which were transverse.
Right.
Put it into reverse, would go the opposite direction.
Right. Now there are some systems where there's one particular one over on the south coast somewhere that uses water as a counterbalance. Now, did the pithead use coal, men and things going down as a counterbalance to bring the other one
going
up?
down would have some counterbalance on it, but not a great deal. By comparison with the weight that was coming up, not a great deal. Right.
So not a great lot of counterbalance, but some counterbalance. I suppose it adds up over a year.
Oh yeah.
Over a week or whatever.
But a very strong engine. It would lift that 10 tons, and it would do it fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I notice you've got quite a lot of information behind us on this back wall.
Yes.
Presumably that's about the pit. Generally.
About the early days.
About the early days
in general. These illustrations.
And I suppose a lot of the people who worked in this pit lived very locally.
Yes.
To this mine. I know when I was a lad, I used to live over at Hurlham, and I used to walk across Hurlham Moss to fish on the Bridgewater Canal here, the edge of the pit. And there was some very nice fish and big fish here. That was before I learned that fish actually felt pain, and obviously I've never been fishing since. But that's just another story.
Yeah, but at that time you would have seen the steam engines working backwards and forwards, shunting the carriages, the barges on the canal, presumably.
Yeah, seen all that.
Yeah.
But and I also noticed that you have a control room here.
Well, this is just a makeshift manager's office. We actually have a control room there, where the engine. The mine's winder would have worked in the box there.
Okay.
Will control the engine.
Oh, now the behind us is the what looks like the control box, and I notice it looks out over this engine, and presumably it looks out over the winding gear.
Not so much over the winding gear outside, but oversees the engine for its operation here.
Right.
But most of the communication was done by bells.
Right.
He has a series of bells there for the different scenes.
Right, I see.
So most of the communication was done by bells.
Right. So would there be instruments inside there that are showing the winding gear and the
not so much. Again, it was a very basic system, so levers more than instruments.
Right.
This was a skill in itself.
Right.
The
man was a highly skilled job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was responsible for. If you think about it, it was responsible for production, because the speed that he brought the coal out was how the coal was measured,
right.
And also for safety.
Right. Of course. Dangerous places pits.
Yeah.
Now, notice when I came in that you've got some piston rings there on the
Yes.
on the floor.
Yeah.
The larger one is for the low pressure. You were telling us about the low pressure.
The large one is for the low pressure cylinder. The smaller one's for the high pressure cylinder, and in both cases, slightly larger than you would find in most combustion engines.
Yes, of course. Especially as this is the biggest one in the world. Don't forget, and also a couple of valves here.
Yeah, the
reed
valves.
valves.
So the engine has to have a system where it lets steam in,
And
drives, and vents the steam to
Correct.
exhaust. And these valves rotated 45 degrees to open and close on opposite sides to force the piston across the cylinder.
That's right. There was something else I was going to actually mention, was that when you were talking initially, you mentioned that this is a reciprocating engine. Yeah. Most people won't know what that means, but what that actually does mean, a reciprocating engine is something that uses some kind of crank to rotate some kind of wheel, flywheel, driving wheel, and basically, put simply, it's to convert reciprocating motion, which is the backwards and forwards motion of the piston, into reciprocating power, circular motion, so that you can do some work. So you don't have to go running around trying to look it up. What does it mean? It's that simple. Now we're going to go and we're going to take a look at the middle of this particular engine, or rather the gap between this engine and its sister that stands beside it, because there's something very interesting over there. So here we are in the actual control box, control tower, looking over the engine, and if you look down, you'll see several levers, and the levers all have different jobs. Now, this particular lever, you can actually go.
It's the main valve, so that allows steam into the system or not.
So this particular valve lets the steam into the system. It's the type that locks when you push it back. Now it's locked. The second one, this particular one,
is the equivalent of an accelerator.
This one is a valve, it's like an accelerator on a car. It's a valve that governs the amount of steam going into the actual engine. If you open the valve, let more steam in, the engine speeds up. If you close the valve, less steam, and the engine slows down. Now, on the floor, you'll see there's a pedal here, which, if you look at it, is very much like a brake pedal. And there's a reason for that. It is a brake pedal. Now, we tend to think that HGV vehicles are highly sophisticated, which they are, and modern. But this has exactly the same braking system in it that they have now today. The brakes are held off by the compressed air, or in this particular case, steam. And the minute you press this pedal, you let the steam out, or in the case of a heavy goods vehicle, the air out, and springs clamp the brakes on immediately. And that's what happens in this particular instance. So, not that new when you consider that this engine and this system is well over 100 years old. Now, finally, we have this lever here, and this is actually a gear lever. And it governs the actual gearing of the driving engine.
So forward or reverse.
So that it will go forward or reverse, like, I'm sorry, what was your name? Colin, that's it. Hard name to forget that as well. But anyway, as Colin just said, this is a gear lever which actually governs the forward and backward motion of the actual winding engine. You'll also notice that above me is a row of bells, and those particular bells are what tells the actual person driving the winding engine whereabouts the cage is, within the actual length, the half-mile length of the pit as it goes up and down, and through a combination of different rings that he gets, he'll be able to determine whether there's men coming up or coal coming up. In the case of coal, he'll bring that coal up as fast as he can, because time is money. Because as Colin actually said today, coal can't complain. But in the case of bringing miners up, then you don't want all the blood rushing to the feet, so they're brought up a lot slower, obviously. So here we are in the gap between the engines, both the engines, and Colin's going to tell us about this gin, which is not a full-size version. But what I'll do is I'll let Colin actually explain it to you. I'm sure he can explain it a lot better than I can.
So this is a quarter-size model of what was called a gin winding engine. So this would be 4 times larger than the model we have here. On the central rope, there would have been 2 horses attached, and they would walk round in one direction to unwind rope to let people down into the mine, or the opposite direction to wind rope on to bring people and coal out of the mine. Now, the horses would have been guided by an apprentice at that time. In that age, would have been probably about the age of 12 or 13 years old.
There's an interesting fact about that, though, that you actually telling me about earlier, about by the time he was
in his mid-30s, we'd gone from the traditional gin winding engine,
2 horses basically,
2 horsepower engine, to this engine, which was designed in the time of the Industrial Revolution, 33,000 horsepower. So you can imagine the speed and the weight that this can pull compared to what they were doing only a matter of maybe 20 years earlier. So the Industrial Revolution happened very quickly.
And what about these wagons here?
Well, this is a traditional mine cart that would have been used back in the early days. Remember that up until Queen Victoria's time, the age for children working in the mine was 5. 5-year-old and above would go work into the mine. Queen Victoria had it changed; it went up to 12, believe it or not.
Oh, right. So the education came into it then?
Yeah, yes, part-time education. Yeah,
but nevertheless.
But this is the type of truck that would have been moved by 2 children, one at the back pushing it, and one at the front chained to it with a leather belt, and he would have been pulling it.
And children were used because of the actual gap of the seam.
Sometimes, sometimes yes. Sometimes just because the families needed that money to be able to survive.
Hard times.
Very hard times, yeah.
And was there a mortality rate to those?
Yes, children? And that's why the age was changed in Victorian times from 5 to 12. There was a huge explosion where over 20 children were killed in one of the mines. Queen Victoria became aware of it and asked Parliament to change the law, which they did. But an interesting fact for you, the age for children working in the mines today is 12. It's never been changed. It's like the old story with the man with the red flag in front of the car was never changed. The age for the children working in the mines has never changed, except with no mines, and the Education Act overtook it, obviously.
Yeah. Luckily, no children were actually killed in this mine, though.
No children worked in this mine.
No children worked in this mine. So if you're going to come and have a look around the mine, this is probably one of the few mines that you can look around where no children were actually killed or maimed. Now, we were just talking about the children working in the mine, and below me is an illustration of that very thing. And to my right is a lot of interesting stuff that when you come here, you'll be able to spend time actually looking at. Behind me is a famous Lancashire boiler. Now, we all know and loved Fred Dibner and his programmes, and he was always going on about Lancashire boilers. Probably because he was from Lancashire and he was into steam engines. But this big tube behind me is an actual Lancashire boiler. That's what a Lancashire boiler looks like for the uninitiated. Cut. Okay. Now this little beast is the only surviving engine and wagons and what looks like a fuel tank on the rear from this particular pit, and actually works at this pit. There's also an engine, a yellow engine, to the left of me, which I don't know the history of. But you can see by the actual size and shape of these engines that that were designed to work in and around pits. Now towards the back of the pit, or rather the front of the pit, because that's probably closest to the front entrance here, is a lamp room, and we're going to go in and take a look. Now you think in modern times everything's modern, but in actual fact that's not the case. Now when you go in the supermarket and they take the tag off your clothes or your shoes by putting it in a machine that's magnetized, they were doing this over 150 years ago, same system, in order to ensure that miners' lamps were tamper-proof. And we're going to have an expert now actually illustrate how to do it.
There we go. So that is a magnetic catch. So that's quite a large magnet. That allows you to open it. Otherwise you won't be able to open it. Okay? You heard that go click back again. That allows you to take off.
The base.
The base. And that works on the same principle as a Zippo lighter. In other words, that is full of wadding, and you soak it with fuel, which is actually Zippo lighter fuel.
So those of you who've had granddads that used to have the old lighter that and it give you the light, and then when it was empty, you had to put petrol in it or some kind of fuel in it, similar to petrol, and it was soaked up by what looked like cotton wool. It was actually wadding in the base. This particular lamp has a bigger reservoir of wadding, so it can hold more fuel, so it can burn for much longer. But basically the same principle. Okay, now the final trick is that there's also a gravity catch on this particular lamp, and again, once again, it's going to be illustrated to you how it works.
Okay, so that's little push rod drops by gravity. That allows you to open the top, which is called the bonnet. In this case, it's stainless steel. You can see it's well dented. There you go. That's how it works. That's the gauze. There's actually one inside the other. It's a double gauze.
So it's a double gauze. Now the gauze is that fine that a flame can't actually jump through the gauze. That's what makes it. Now, why was the glass so thick?
Okay, you don't want the glass breaking below ground, because that would be
disastrous if there was any methane or anything like that in the mine, and that glass got broke.
Designed so that anything hitting it there is less likely to hit the glass.
Okay.
Right. The thickness and strength, and the distance apart.
So the metal pillars on this lamp are to protect the glass without obstructing the amount of light that's coming out of the lamp unnecessarily, which is a fairly clever idea. There were no fools, were they?
No, not at all. Right, so let's get that back. So,
now the original ones were probably made of copper or brass.
The problem with brass is it bends easily.
Soft.
It's too soft.
Same with copper actually as well.
So again, that's now Now lock up there. Position. Now I can get that back in. Fiddle it. Him. It again. Open it. And it's that.
And it's locked. It can't be tampered with.
Right. Just like your zipper lighter. This, when pushed in with a slap, will create a spark. Okay?
Yeah, excellent.
On the bottom, you can
Adjust the wick.
adjust the height of the wick. So we'll wind it down to 1/4 inch. There you go. This is also Garforth lamp. You can take this out. Just grab that thing out. You can take an air sample.
Yeah.
And inject it into there. Okay.
Now, does it change colour if there's any gas or anything in it?
There we go. This is what you now need to look at. The channel. Okay. So the flame is yellow. If you get what's a blue cap, it's called a blue cap on it, you're burning methane.
Which is similar to
It's
the...
exactly what comes out the North Sea.
Yeah.
The North Sea gas has something added so you can smell it. So you can detect if you've got a leak.
Yeah.
Okay. As it naturally occurring. It doesn't have any smell at all.
And that blue flame would be an awful lot hotter than the yellow flame. Similar to, say, an oxyacetylene torch, where they adjust the amount of gas and air to give yourself a blue flame, or a Bunsen burner at school, the same kind of principle.
2%, that's the point that you evacuate. It's a flat, inflammable of it. Above about 5.6%, it's explosive.
Well, before I start, I should explain for the eagle-eyed amongst you that I might look slightly different, and I must apologise for the continuity error. We got caught in that last rainstorm and we got soaked, and I've had to pop back to the car and change my top. So, pink top, I take off, now I'm wearing a black top. That's pretty much the end of the video. There's so much to see here at Hindley Green, at the Lancashire Coal Mining Museum, that it's not possible to do it within a couple of hours. There's tons and tons of machinery. There's an underground representation of a mine that we could still do, and there's lots of other things. It really is like an afternoon out if you decide to come out over to the coal mine museum. Now, parking's free, and it's free of charge. There's no entry fee, and the people are very nice and very, very informative. You can learn an awful lot. I'd go as far as say it's an education coming here. So, thank you for watching today's YouTube video. Thank you for your comments. Always appreciated, positive or negative. Do help us to grow the channel by subscribing and liking if you feel in a generous mood. For now, goodbye from Roy's Rambles, and do carry on viewing.